In Success Talks Football, guys, finally, the top 5 European leagues are back. Yeah, the Bundesliga and Serie A is staying this week, joining the other 3 that stayed last week. Guys, football is completely back. So let's take a look at the fixtures of today, Friday, and let's see what we have. In the Premier League, we have West Ham versus Chelsea at 4 p.m. West African time. In La Liga, we have Real Betis versus Deportivo Alaves at 8 p.m. West African time. In the Bundesliga, we have Bayern Munich take on Leipzig at 7:30 West African time. And lastly, in Ligue 1, we have Paris Saint-Germain versus Angers at 7:45 p.m. West African time. On Saturday, 23rd August, we have more matches. Starting with the Premier League, we have at 12:30 West African time, Manchester City will take on Tottenham Hotspur. That's going to be an interesting match. And at 3 p.m. West African time, it is Bournemouth versus Wolves. At the same time, 2 other matches are going to play alongside, and they are Brentford versus Aston Villa and Burnley versus Sunderland. Then the last match for that day in the Premier League is Arsenal versus Leeds United at 5:30 p.m. West African time. In La Liga, at 4 p.m. West African time, it is Mallorca versus Celta Vigo. And at 6:30 p.m., it is Atletico Madrid versus Elche. Of course, I expect Atletico Madrid to win that match. Then the last match for that day is at 8:30 p.m. and it is between Levante and Barcelona. Well, Barcelona is playing away, but I expect them to win that match. In the Bundesliga, there are quite a number of matches. And, at 2:30 p.m., we have about 5 matches, and they are Bayer Leverkusen versus Hoffenheim, Frankfurt versus Werder Bremen, we have Odenheim versus Wolfsburg, Freiburg versus Augsburg, and Union Berlin versus Stuttgart. Then the last match for that day is at 5:30 p.m. West African time, and it is St. Pauli versus Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund should secure 3 points in the match. And lastly, the Serie A, which is officially kicking off, on Saturday 23rd, we have some matches, and they are at 5:30 p.m. we have Genoa versus Leeds. At the same time, we have Sassuolo versus Napoli. Well, that should be a win for Napoli. And at 7:45 p.m. we have AC Milan versus Cremonese. An easy win for AC Milan, if you ask me. At the same time, we have AS Roma versus Bologna. Do not joke with Bologna. It cannot be easy for AS Roma even if they win. Lastly, for Saturday, the matches in Ligue 1, and at 4 p.m. West African time, it is Marseille versus Paris FC, and at 6 p.m. West African time, it is Nice versus Auxerre. The last match for that day is at 8:05 p.m. and it is Lyon versus Metz. On Sunday 24th, in the Premier League, we have 2 matches that will play at 2 p.m. West African time, and they are Crystal Palace versus Nottingham Forest, and also Everton versus Brighton. Then at 4:30 p.m. the last match for that day will be Fulham versus Manchester United. In La Liga, at 4 p.m. we have Osasuna versus Valencia. At 6:30 p.m. we have Real Sociedad versus Espanyol. At the same time, it is Villarreal versus Girona. Then the last match for that day is at 8:30 p.m. and it is Real Oviedo versus Real Madrid. In the Bundesliga, we have just 2 matches for Sunday, and they are Mainz versus Cologne at 2:30 p.m. and at 4:30 p.m. it is Mönchengladbach versus Hamburger. In Serie A, at 5:30 p.m. we have 2 matches, and they are Cagliari versus Fiorentina and Como versus Lazio. And at 7:45 p.m. we have Atalanta versus Pisa. The last match for that day at the same time is Juventus versus Parma. Now let's quickly go to Ligue 1. In Ligue 1, at 2 p.m. we have Lorient versus Reims. At 4:15 p.m. we have Le Havre versus Lens. At the same time, 2 other matches will play, and they are Strasbourg versus Nantes, Toulouse versus Brest. The last match for that day is at 7:45 p.m. and it is Lille versus AS Monaco. We have some matches for Monday, just a few. Let's take a look at them. On Monday 25th, the last match for match day 2 in the Premier League is Newcastle versus Liverpool. That's going to be an interesting match. Will Alexander Isak play? I do not think so. And in La Liga, it is Athletic Club versus Rayo Vallecano at 6:30 p.m. and at 8:30 it is Sevilla versus Getafe. In Serie A, at 5:30 p.m. it is Udinese versus Hellas Verona. At 7:45 p.m. the last match in Serie A will be Inter versus Torino, and this will be the end of match day 2 versus 38 or 34 in some leagues. So as it stands, some teams will secure 6 points, while some will remain on 3 points. Some will secure a 3 points. Some will still remain at 0. Where will your team be? Of course, for Real Madrid, I know we are securing 6 points. I do not know about your team, but I expect the big teams to win. I expect Manchester United to win. It's not going to be an easy one. I think they're playing against Fulham. I expect, however, Manchester City to win. It's not going to be easy for Liverpool. Chelsea, West Ham, well, expect Chelsea to win. They drew their last match. I expect them to win this one. Arsenal, well, they won their last match. with a very slim chance. I also expect them to win. And Barcelona, of course, I expect them to win. You know. Atletico Madrid, of course, it should be a win for them. I mean, they lost their first match, so they'll definitely win. This one, guys, I've come to the end of this episode. Do not forget to follow us. At this point, you should be saying this with me. Follow us across our social media platforms. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. See you in the next episode.